All right, so here we are, the bottom section on page 2 on your 1.1 and through 1.4 notes. And lots of work to do here on this one. We're looking for the distance between the 2 points, so we got to find distance first off. The midpoint of the segment connecting the 2 points, and the slope of the line connecting the 2 points. So there's 3 things to find. Now when you're doing your tests, make sure that you answer all the questions that are asked of you. If we only did the distance, we'd be missing 2/3 of this question. It also wants the midpoint and the slope. So please be very careful to fully answer the questions when you get them. Now we've already done slope and we've already done midpoint, but we haven't talked about distance yet. And a couple things I want to mention real quickly. There is a distance formula, but let's say we forgot it, and you should hopefully be able to reason your way through it. So here's 2 points, and we're saying what's the distance between them. Okay, and here's one way to think about it, and because the distance formula is actually the exact same thing. It looks a little bit different, but it's really the exact same thing as the Pythagorean theorem. So here if I have A and B and C, let's go with purple, and C, the Pythagorean theorem says A squared plus B squared equals C squared. And that C, if we can get to C, that is what our distance is. Now if you're looking down here below, you would take the square root of both sides and end up with, I'm going to switch everything around, I'm going to end up with C equals the square root of whatever A squared is plus B squared. Now notice we took the square root, but we didn't do positive or negative because we're finding distance, and distance is always positive. And so we can ignore the negative result of taking the square root. And this right here really is your distance formula. Remember I said the distance formula is the same thing as the Pythagorean theorem. The distance formula itself, kind of explicitly written out, is that the distance is equal to the square root of x1 minus x2, that quantity squared, plus y1 minus y2, and again that quantity squared also. If you look right here, x1 minus x2, that is this right here. That's our difference of our x value. So from here to here, what's my length? Well, it's b. And how do you find that? Well, it's x1 minus x2. And right here we've got our a value from this picture. It's the difference in my y values. So whatever this point is minus this point. And really it doesn't make a difference which y value you start with or which x value you start with, because you're going to be squaring them. So you're going to end up with just a positive number either way you go about it. Now there is the distance formula, and whichever one's easier for you to memorize. So a lot of times folks have problems memorizing the distance formula. And so if you can reason back through that it's really just as the Pythagorean theorem, maybe that can give you a little more confidence going into your test, or just whenever you're using the distance formula. All right, that all being said, let's go ahead and find the distance of the first one. So we got -4, 3, and 5, 7. So distance is equal to, again, the square root of, well, it's going to be a squared plus b squared. But what is our a and b? We've got our x value, so x1 minus x2. So -4 plus 5, or sorry, -4 minus 5. -4 minus 5 here. And then of our y values, so 3 minus -7, 3 minus -7. That results in distance is equal to the square root of -9 squared plus, well, 3 minus -7, that's 3 plus 7, 10 squared. All right, that is d is equal to the square root of 81 plus 100, and d is equal to the square root of 181. And that, I don't believe, simplifies, but we could reason through what, without even a calculator, we can figure out what two numbers this is between. So the square root of 181, well, the square root of 169, that's 13. And the square root of 196, well, that's 14. And 181 is somewhere here in the middle. So this is something, 13 point something. And actually, let's go ahead and grab the calculator and find out exactly what it is. So the square root of 181, 13.45. So there we go. If you needed to be very exact with your calculator, you can get that answer. But even without a calculator, you should be able to figure out and reason through that it's 13 point something in here. All right. Now let's go ahead and figure out our midpoint. Okay, so again, it's -4, 3, and 5, -7. So midpoint is going to be our average of our x's, comma, average of our y's, or x1 plus x2 divided by 2, and then y1 plus y2 divided by 2. And so we've got -4 plus 5 divided by 2, and 3 plus -7 divided by 2 as well. That gives us 1/2, comma, over here that's -4, and -4 divided by 2 is -2. There's our midpoint. Last for this one, we need to find the slope. And so again, the point was -4. Let's copy this. All right, it was -4, 3, and 5, -7. So the slope is the difference of the y's. So 3 minus -7 divided by the difference of the x's. So -4 minus 5. That gives us 10 over -9, so -10 ninths. -10 ninths is your slope. All right, that's the first one. We also are supposed to find it with the going through the origin and 9, -4. So the origin is 0, 0. And now we can go through and do the same thing here. So distance is equal to the square root of 9, or I guess for consistency I'll go 0. It doesn't make a difference which one we use first, but I used this x value first last time. So 0 minus 9 squared plus 0 minus -4 squared. That's equal to the square root of, well, -9 squared, that's 81, plus -4, and actually I'm missing a parentheses over here. -4 is +4, and 4 squared is 16. So 81 plus 16 we get is equal to the square root of 97. Again, we talked about this on the a little bit earlier, but there's no positive or negative when you're taking the square root here because distance is always something positive. Now here you could reason through that this number is somewhere in between 9 and 10 because this, the square root of 81 is 9, and that's less than the square root of 97, and the square root of 100 is 10, and that's more than the square root of 97. So this is going to be 9 point something, and specifically, let's go ahead and find out. Square root of 97 is 9.84, so on, so on, so on. All right, but there's our answer. Distance is equal to the square root of 97. Now our midpoint, it's going to be average of the x's, so 0 plus 9 divided by 2, comma, 0 plus -4 divided by 2, and we end up with 9/2, comma, -2. There's our midpoint. Lastly, we've got the slope once again, and slope is going to be rise over run, our difference of the y's over the difference of the x's, and so we have 0 minus, what was our y value? 0 minus negative 4, so 0 minus negative 4 over 0 minus 9. And that's going to be 4 over negative 9, which is negative 4/9. There's our slope. All right, I hope that helped.